Hello and thanks for checking out ChartGuys.com. We're proud to be one of the most successful technical analysis communities online, teaching you the skills to become a more confident, effective, and informed trader. Join our community of hundreds of analysts worldwide working together to learn the charts, generate profit, and achieve financial independence. For access to daily live chart analysis and market coverage, a thriving chat community, along with dozens of hours of exclusive educational materials. We look forward to seeing you. Let's check out some charts. Checking in on the MJ sector, so things got even uglier this morning. The Canadian MJ sector bounced more significantly. The US MJ sector did not. The vote got knocked back into perhaps this evening, but knowing how the government works, I wouldn't be surprised if it gets kicked back a little bit further. So if the market is clearly showing us after the last 2 days that it does not care about this vote. That's probably, in my opinion, due to everybody knowing that the Senate is the hurdle. So we'll start to price in if the Senate looks like it's going to pass, but I believe that the market right now is saying that the SAFE Act does not have a chance of passing the Senate. There is a chance. It does not have a likelihood of passing the Senate. So the lesson for me today is stick with the liquid names like CGC and Cron. That's where the bounces were. There were a couple USMJ names that had some bounces, but there were also a bunch of bounces with a lack of follow through. The bottom line is I would have done much better today buying the bounce in Cron or CGC, knowing that I can use more capital, knowing that there's institutions that want to buy it, and that leads to bounces with a lot more traders interested in these names than on the OTC USMJ names where there's not a whole lot of interest. So I'll explain what I did with each individual name as we get to it. But we'll start it off with CGC. We closed at the high of the day, and the correlation between CGC was all SPY related. And if you don't believe me, just pull up the SPY hourly chart. It's the same thing. We hit the low of the day on a bearish reaction to the release of Trump's transcript of the call. As soon as the market saw what was in the transcript, the market said, oh, that's not really a big deal. We got all this fear yesterday of the potential of impeachment, and now that we have this information, the probability of an impeachment goes down. So the market priced in that new information. So SPY went straight from the low of the day to the high of the day at the close, and we did not consolidate on the hourly. What did CGC do? It did the exact same thing. Straight from the low of the day to the high of the day, no hourly consolidation. So pretty much a tick for tick correlation between CGC and SPY today. So on this CGC bounce now, and on any name that has not changed its hourly trend, we still need that tomorrow. We need a healthy higher low and higher high tomorrow to be looking for an hourly trend change. And then we will just be looking for a daily lower high compared to 28.89. Anything under that is just a lower high. The one good thing for the bulls is that they held 22.76. So the chance for a weekly higher low is still possible. We held that level by about 1%. It was a bottom fishing play. The 4-hour RSI was oversold at the low of the day. The hourly was pretty beat up, and I didn't have a whole lot of interest in CGC, and I should have. I was focused on Cron and watching $9 psychological flush for a bounce, and I was doing the morning live stream, and I looked at Cron, and I was watching it trade in the 9 teens, and the next time I looked back, it had already flushed and it had already bounced, and that would have been the perfect entry, and look at how quick that bounce went. Flush, thank you very much, straight into a 6% bounce in less than an hour. That was the trade. That was an easy multiple day maker, and I missed it. So I have to reflect upon that. I had a lot going on between answering questions and going over the market, so I'm not going to beat up on myself, but that was the play. And it was that volume climax, flush under 9 psychological, and that's why I missed it. I mean, look at how fast that flush happened. We were up at 920s, 920s, and then 4 minutes later, 5 minutes is what it took to go from 920 to 893 and then back up into the 9 teens. If I had taken that trade, how would I have done it? I would have filled out my buy order. I would have set a limit buy for $9 or a market order, but generally I would put a limit buy. And then as soon as we break $9 and the ask is under 9, I limit buy at a $9 limit, and it fills as if it's a market order until we get to $9, and then it stops filling. But in general, when I do that, which I do often, the whole order fills. So Cron, have we changed the hourly trend? It's a bit different than CGC. We did consolidate. Low, high of the bounce, higher low is 928, and then we saw continuation. We didn't break the high of the day, which would have made the bulls a bit more comfortable into tomorrow. So 961 is a double top right now. and 928 is the most important short-term support. Just like CGC, anything under 1177 is just a daily lower high. We're only looking to cool off short-term RSI levels and set daily lower highs on these bounces. ACB is a bit of a weaker bounce. Hourly time frame, high, low, lower high. If we can't break 487 tomorrow morning, we're going to look to pull back and form an hourly higher low compared to 451, and that will give us a clear hourly equilibrium to be watching. APHA, weaker bounce as well. That's actually a much weaker bounce. Nowhere near as strong as everybody that we just looked at. High of the day, low of the day. High of the bounce is 561 resistance. Support down at 543. And the bulls need a lot more follow through to be looking for a bounce on the daily. And then we'll just be looking for a daily lower high to be set. Gap to fill was at 541. Low of today, 534. That gap has now filled. TLRY, 2515, only support nearby. Hourly time frame, high of the day, low of the day, couldn't break the high of the day into the close. So if we fail to break 2692 first thing tomorrow morning, we have to pull back and hold 2587 to try and form an hourly higher low. Hexo, nice hold off support. There's your bottom fishing play. We bounced off of 398, which is 7 pennies above support. Low, high, higher low, lower high, higher low, and we're scouting a lower high compared to 462, and we're going to look for a break of this tightening range. If the bulls get a bit more follow through, I need to see 421 break tomorrow to be confident we will remain in an equilibrium. If we do, we're going to look to stay in this equilibrium into next week, and then we'll look for a break of this pattern next week. VFF, weaker bounce as well, hourly time frame. Low, high of the bounce was 951, higher low at 927. Bulls have to break 951 and 964 to try and change this hourly trend, in which case we would zoom out and look for a daily lower high to form on this bounce. So there's a lot of differences, some names stronger bounces than others, and the same is true for the USMJ space. Let's wrap it up with T-God. T-God held support as well, bottom fishing off the all-time low, held it by 7 cents. Have to change the hourly trend. You could say that we did. 230 is a higher low, we broke. Didn't break the high of the day, though. That still remains just like Cron. Very similar to Cron. 244 needs to break short term. And then we'd be looking for a daily lower high compared to 274. Can the bulls change the daily trend while maintaining the double bottom at the all-time low is the question. Because if the answer is no, we're going to see a new all-time low in the near-term future. KSHB was a big-time bounce winner. So I was 1 day too early on that one. But we held the low of yesterday by 6 pennies. And then just a rocket ship bounce. And from the low of the day to the high of the day, 24%. That is a great opportunity. So congrats to those bulls that got that move. Hourly has not consolidated from the low of the day, so we know we're a bit extended. 216 has to hold. Anything on the daily chart under 396 is just a lower high. That's what you want to see in an oversold bounce. And again, you don't have to nail the bottom and you don't have to nail the top, but fairly easy for a very liquid name like that to go 5 or 10%. I think I said, once we hit a bottom, we'll see 10% easy. And that was me being very conservative, under promise, over deliver. So far, already up 25% from that low. So now we're getting to the USMJ space. Let's go with OH first. So I stopped out of OH. I tried a bounce play yesterday. And as soon as we broke the low of yesterday, today, I exited that position for a loss. So what that does is it frees up having to manage that position, trying to, do I want to keep scaling in and be more exposed than I was initially planning on? Do I want to have to keep monitoring it? Or do I want to cut it, start with a fresh, clean slate, and then start to play these bounces? Because I treated today as a day to be buying. And that's because things were so extreme over the last 2 days, and things have been so extreme in this fear cycle that when I see that much fear and that much strength to the downside, I couldn't help myself but be fairly aggressive with my buying today. And it wasn't necessarily aggressive with playing large positions, because again, on the OTC, that's really hard to do. But it was aggressive in the sense of stepping in front of the speeding bear train to play counter to those extreme emotions that we were seeing today. So took my loss on OH yesterday and then focused on Cureleaf, and I actually bought into IAN today as well. So for OH, we have the low, and if we look on the 15-minute time frame, we can just see the bounce never developed. Low of the day, high of the bounce, slow fade, a little bull move into the end of the day, but we're going to have to see a break of 633 tomorrow for the bulls to start showing any shift in momentum. Hourly trend has not changed. We're still in an hourly downtrend. What it did do is cool off hourly RSI levels. So again, we can always see another leg down. We have to continually remind ourselves that. And we're hitting fresh lows from the recent price action on OH, which is not surprising because CL is leading the way to the downside. CL keeps dropping to lower highs and lower lows. It didn't get any bounce going today, and that is acting as a weight on OH. CL has to bounce for OH to see any bounce, and for both names, we will just be looking for a daily lower high. I do still have a longer-term position on OH, and I don't know what my break-even price here is on OH because it's the US ticker, but I'm down probably about 8% or so on that position. And at this point, I will be looking to exit at break even on a daily bounce for a lower high. But it's the kind of swing position size where it's not critical. You know, a few percent here or there on my swing position trades because that position size is so different. It's honestly something that I'm not overly concerned with. But what I do know is I do want to exit that position on a daily lower high being set. Aside from that, entered IAN today on the US ticker at 275. It ended up plus 5%. So an oversold bounce underway, big bullish reversal candlestick on the daily, or at least a big long lower wick. And the reason I entered is just things got extreme. And when it's this extreme and I looked down and I saw IAN down 10%, I said, okay, I'm comfortable starting to scale in. We're reaching extreme fear levels. The hourly RSI at that point was in the teens. The 4-hour RSI was approaching the teens, the daily RSI and the weekly RSI, all oversold. So there's a number of ways that I can play this out. Am I going to sit through hourly consolidation because we know to change the hourly trend, we're going to have to pull back and form a higher low and hope for continuation? Am I going to lock in my profit while I have it? The one thing that I'm not going to do is go red on this trade unless there's a big bad news gap down open. Aside from that, you better believe I will bail on this trade at break even the first sign of weakness because the last thing that I'm going to be doing is holding this position in the red. So at this point, I will probably have a mental break even stop on it, and I will probably let it try and play out for an hourly trend change. I need an hourly higher low and a higher high. Then I zoom out and I look for a daily lower high to form, and then I would look to sell on that daily lower high. MedMen, big bouncing from that all-time low. So hourly time frame, end of the day, surge, breaking all kinds of resistance. Have we changed the hourly trend? The answer is no. So we need a clear hourly higher low and higher high. On the daily chart, anything under 282 is a lower high. So we're not changing that daily trend anytime soon. Pretty much every MJ bull, the goal for the bulls is to create as much space as possible to form a daily higher low once we do top out on this current bounce. Because we have to see the daily trend change for it to mean anything to us. Otherwise, it's just cooling off short-term RSI levels to allow for another leg down. Daily trend changes are a must. We cannot cut these bulls any slack. We have to be very critical of these bulls. They have a lot to prove to us to gain our trust. GTII. Big pullback for the 4th day in a row. Hourly trend is not changing. Anything under 1275 is a lower high. We'd have to see an hourly trend change to believe that we're going to bounce on the daily. We are looking for a weekly higher low to form, but to be confident of that, we have to see a daily trend change. To be confident the weekly higher low has been established, we haven't even changed the hourly trend. So we can distinguish names that have changed their hourly trend and are looking for a daily lower high now, to names that still need to change their hourly trend. And even though IAN had a big bounce and that position is up 5%, we haven't changed the hourly trend. So I have to keep that in mind. And if I am going to be planning on holding this longer, I have to anticipate that I will need to sit through consolidation for an hourly higher low to form. Curaleaf closed very weak, and 2 days in a row now closing at the low of the day. So I tried to bounce play on Curaleaf as well. And again, it's the US ticker, so my levels are going to be a bit off. But I ended up with my strategy, my style, where I scale in into the weakness this morning. I ended up buying at about 660 and 640. So my average was 650. And I sold the first bounce, half of my position, to lock in some profit. So if I sold 10 cents over my average price, my break-even price is then from 650 down to 640. And I let this play out where we just got tighter, 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 attempted a bull move at the end of the day. It got squashed. We closed at the low of the day. That shows us the bears still have significant momentum in their favor. The hourly RSI is at 23. The 4-hour RSI is on the verge of oversold. And that tells us that we can see potentially further weakness into tomorrow because this bounce got zero follow through. Our new resistance is 659 and this is the wrong ticker. The Canadian ticker, our key resistance is 873 and 880. If we can't break those levels, bulls prove nothing to us. Support is 844, and then we're looking down at 8 psychological as the next clear level. But again, the momentum is favoring the bears here. So I am still in a position which is just above break even, and I'll have to decide tomorrow, depending on how we look, as to whether I want to cut that at break even or a small loss, or re-add the half position. And I probably will re-add because of where the RSI levels stand, where if we drop down and break the low today, first thing tomorrow, that hourly RSI will very quickly be back in the teens. So it would be the kind of thing where my average, let's say, is at 840, and I re-add the second half of that position at 820 if we drop down to it, and then that drops my break even to 830. And then I just look at this 4-hour time frame and put on a line where I would have to, and I keep mixing up these tickers, but it would be Curaleaf, where if we drop down to 620, then my average would be 630, and then I put a line on the chart, where would my break even be? And would I be comfortable with a position at break even of 630 if I had to sit through some pullback? And the answer is yes, because it wouldn't take much bounce at all for me to be back to break even. So that's a potential possibility, just thinking aloud. Again, didn't make nearly as much money today as I should have with my oversold bread and butter because I picked the wrong tickers. So I review, what could I have done differently? What could I have noticed differently? And the biggest takeaway, play the names that have volume, that institutional traders are trading because there's volume, and that's Cron and CGC. CWeb had a good bounce today as well, but couldn't break the high of the day. So we have our high, low of the pullback. We got back to the high of the day, or just under it, and rejected. So if we pull back tomorrow, we have to hold 1852 and then break those resistances to change the hourly trend. Then we zoom out and just look for a daily lower high compared to 2280, as CWeb is certainly in control of the bears. TRUL, weak bounce attempt, no follow through, end of the day sell-off. New hourly resistance is 1093. Bulls would have to hold 1050 and break 1093 to change the hourly trend. Daily time frame, 991 is support, and we're looking to see, can the bulls pull off a weekly higher low, as they're running out of space to do so. So bottom line, market does not care about the House vote, in my opinion. It's all looking forward to the Senate. Other than that, some names stronger than others, some names weaker. The fear cycle is magnifying bearish news with the vaping news in Massachusetts canceling sales of the vape cartridges, and that is the overlying bear cloud in front of the sector right now. So we'll see how tomorrow goes. Hourly trend changes needed for everybody, and even then, we're just looking for daily lower highs to be set on the vast majority of names. Going traveling for a week, videos won't be as regular as usual, but I'll check in as I can, and we'll see if these bounces from today get any follow through. Some names certainly still in trouble. Curaleaf and APHA stand out from US and Canada as names with weaker bounces. Thanks again, do good things, see you soon.
On you. Oh!
Did you hurt your leg?
Can't see.
Hits you what?